Hi.
Hi,
Hey.
how you
How
doing?
are you? Yep.
Good, good. I've never done a TikTok live interview, so forgive
You're
me
our
if I'm not
second,
hip to the
This is our
jive.
second one, so it's
so we're starting
okay.
with this too.
I'm glad you were able to join okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah. How's your day going?
Oh, very good, very good.
I
Good.
love to hear it. I love to hear it. All right. I'll introduce you real quick before we get going into this interview. But we've been live for about 10 minutes, so we've been talking to a whole lot of viewers. They're excited. We were telling them about your book. They actually had a couple questions. But everybody, this is actually, how do you pronounce your name?
My name is Shami, like the car cloth.
Yeah.
Shami? Okay. Shami Stovall?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Cool.
So, Shami Stovall, everyone, she is a multi award winning author of fantasy and science fiction, and we are very lucky to be speaking with her this evening. Shami sent us two copies of Knightmare Arcanist. This is the first book in the Frith Chronicles. This story follows our main character, Volk, who wants nothing more than to be an arcanist, sorry, and which is someone who can use magic. And to be an arcanist, you have to bond with a mythical creature. Now we see Volk, our main character, go through a lot of trials and tribulations throughout this first book. There is a lot of really, really, really cool magic in this book. It's got very good action scenes, and it's just a very fun read from start to finish. So we are very excited to be talking to you today.
Yes, we
Oh,
are.
I'm so
Thank you.
glad you enjoyed.
Yes, thank you for joining us. I'll just go right into like this first question we have. And I actually read that your favorite book was as an adult is Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein, I believe. And I've never heard of that book, so I did look it up, and I seen that it was a sci-fi book that came out in the '60s. So was that book like a major source of inspiration for you becoming an author, or did you read that afterwards?
I read it a long time ago in high school, actually. It just blew my mind. It was very, it's a story about a guy who was born on Mars, gets psychic powers, and then comes back to Earth, and that
Hmm.
he's probably going to inherit Mars because he's the only one who has basically lived or been there. And he basically transforms a lot of Earth's way of thinking about things. It's very, I don't know, the 60s sci-fi, so yeah,
I'll have to add it to
I
my
don't
list
think
as
people
well.
would necessarily gravitate towards it just because it's like, oh man, what a banger of a book. But if you like 60s sci-fi, I think you would like it.
Right.
Well, really, I'm wondering, like, so you read that in high school. Was that like, obviously you like to read at that point? Were you inspired to start writing at that point, or when did you decide you wanted to become a writer?
So I knew I was going to be a writer when I started DMing, like Dungeons and Dragons, like where I
Okay.
was running campaigns. A lot of my friends just told me that I write really good stories because I wrote my own stories for the campaigns. I didn't use like a pre-made thing or pre-made characters and whatnot. And so they all encouraged me to do it, and that's when I really set out to do it. I
Okay.
did read a lot of books when I was younger, and I thought to myself, I could probably do better than this. Now that's probably arrogant, yeah, but that there were a couple times where I was like, "Wow, that was really a disappointing read." I think I could have done better in terms of concluding this or having a cool plot, but not all the time, just occasionally. And so when one of my friends encouraged me to write books, I was like, you know what? I've read a couple of books that are bestsellers, and I thought to myself, well, I could probably do better than this. So I'm just gonna try it.
Well,
Okay,
I think you
that's
was
pretty
right.
cool. Yeah, you were
Um,
definitely right because I like this book.
yeah. Going through your catalog, we saw that you wrote a ton of books already. And most of them are in like the series format. Do you prefer writing a series over like a standalone?
Oh yeah. As a reader, I prefer reading series
Same.
rather than standalones because if I like a world and the characters, I just want to keep
I
reading the
want to
world
stay in
and the
that world.
Yep.
characters. I don't want to leave. I actually really dislike short stories. I've technically written some short stories that have won awards and things like that, but I don't actually like them because they're like it's the worst format. Because if I really like this short story, then oh, it's over like
And
immediately.
Right.
exactly, that's literally how I feel. It's like I usually love my standalone books, but then it's like now it's over.
Yep.
Now what?
Yep.
Yes.
Nice. So let me see. For viewers or anybody who's like never read any of your work, what book in your collection would you recommend for them?
I guess it really depends because I do write science fiction and I write fantasy. So if they like fantasy, I usually tell them to read Knightmare Arcanist because I do
Okay.
feel like it's a fun, easy entry into like my books. I feel like it's very universal or like E for everyone. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Mhm.
that kind of vibe. If they like sci-fi, I usually direct them towards my Starmark Rising series because that's very classic space opera.
Okay.
Um, and I do have a new like urban fantasy series that I started not too long ago, and it's been very well received. So if I think for some reason they might like urban fantasy rather than high fantasy, like in the Frith Chronicles, I might point them to that one.
Okay.
Okay.
Would you? Sorry,
Yeah.
real quick. Just piggyback on off that is. Would you say that the Nightmare Arcanist is like, or at least that series is your favorite book that you've written, or do you? What is it? Another book?
I think overall, like totality, the series, it's probably my favorite. The first book, Nightmare Arcanist, is a little bit shorter, and I think in the series, if I had to call it, my favorite book in that series is probably number 3 or 4. But
Okay.
those are big chunk books. Those are like damn near twice the size that Nightmare Arcanist was,
All
because
right. We like that.
Yeah, we
it's
do.
like the Harry Potter syndrome, where every book just got
Gets a little bit bigger.
progressively larger. I also really, really like tournaments just in general, like a tournament arc things. And so
Yeah.
there's
Me
a
too.
tournament in book 3. So that's
Oh.
why it's got like a lot of my favorite stuff
Mhm.
going on in there. So, if we're talking individually, like a book, Nightmare Arcanist, I don't think rises to my favorite, but as a series, I think it has a lot of my favorite stuff in it.
Okay.
Um, as just a like standalone book that has some of my favorite stuff in it. That's like really hard because they're all my beautiful children. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
I
That
love
is a
them
hard
all.
question to ask an author.
Um, yeah, there's a couple. I mean, I do like my sci-fi. My sci-fi does not sell as well as fantasy. I don't know. I don't know why, but I think either the Half-Life Empire or Starmark is one of my like top. Like this is just a book I really love. Like when I
Yeah.
wrote it, and like it stands even by themselves as really good books. So yeah, again, if we're talking just one book, I had to pick one.
It'd
Maybe
be
Star
Nightmare.
Mark or the
Oh.
Half Life
Oh.
Empire. But if it's a series, then it's Nightmare
Oh,
Arcanist. Yeah.
nightmare. Well,
Okay.
speaking of that, when when you first got the idea for the Frith Chronicles, did you know that it was going to be a series format, or did you just kind of have the idea and just went from there?
Oh, I knew it would be a series. I wrote it. I even outlined it as a pretty major
Okay.
series. I had originally thought it was going to be 7 books, but then it turned
Okay.
into 8 because the last book got too long. You know what I'm saying, like that, and then they just got
Yeah.
longer and longer, so I
Yeah.
had to split it. But I knew I like outlining my books. I outline them a lot before I start writing, so
Okay.
I knew. And if you guys do actually read all the way to the conclusion of the series,
Oh, we
you'll
will.
see that
Yeah.
there's some stuff I set up from book 1 that pays off in book 8. So
Okay.
Nice.
yeah, that
We
only
like that.
happened
Love
because I
details.
outlined.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we love good callbacks, and
Yeah.
that honestly, that really answers like my next question, because it's good to know that you being our second author we've interviewed. The first one only wrote a standalone, so we didn't get to ask a question about someone who's wrote a series, because we were always curious if, like, going into a series, did you have it already planned out, like the ending, or at least an ending in mind,
Right.
knowing, that things you got to try to connect things. So that's pretty
Hmm.
cool. That like an outline that makes sense because that's how I would do it if I was writing a series too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess just to go back a little bit, you mentioned like you said your sci-fi's don't sell as much. Well, we got a few people in the comments who were saying, we love space operas on Book Talk. So hopefully
Mhm.
we have some people check out some of those
Oh yeah, I
sci-fi
love
books.
I love space opera. Sci-fi is like my first love. That's what I used to read a ton of in high school. Like I said, um, I just feel like it's a little maybe not as popular right now. Maybe I just don't see
I
it as
think
often. But I personally love it. I really really like sci-fi. I used to read all of them like back in the day. So
Yeah.
have you with whether it was the Frith Chronicles or any of your other books, Have you ever wanted to or thought about them being adapted to a movie or TV show?
Oh yeah, technically the First Chronicles are currently being adapted into a comic book right now.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah, the first chapter was already done. That was a lot of fun.
Cool.
And the process of doing it, has really taught me a lot about how to do things like animation, hiring a team of people to get stuff done. Because even with the
Yeah.
comic book, I didn't know this until I was doing it. But you have to hire someone to do the pencils. You got to hire someone to do the inking. You have to hire someone to do the color. Apparently, there's a letterist, like someone who does the lettering. I didn't know that was different than everything else. I ended up hiring a lady who did the storyboarding, so she read the whole series and then she went through and storyboarded everything, like the scenes and how it's going.
Huh.
The first book, you guys have read the first book, and I guess this is a mild spoiler, but it's like chapter 7, so it's not like it's a big spoiler. But there's a fight between the main character and a whiteheart in the swamp. It's
Yes.
probably one of my favorites in that first book. I really like that scene. And when she did the storyboards for that, it was phenomenal. So I really, really had a great time doing that. And so I'm hoping, like knock on wood, that the First Chronicles becomes popular enough, people hear the word, see it around enough that I can get it to be like an animated series. I really like animation way more than I like live action. That might be my personal bias, but
You get a lot of more freedom with animation.
Yeah.
yeah. So I would hope that would be something that I can do. But again, I would need to. I'd really need to get like the word out. It needs to get more popular in terms of like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Well,
makes
we'll
sense.
do,
about it.
yeah, we'll do our part. And before I forget, thank you so much for these bookmarks. Were like with Volk on the cover of the bookmark is so
We
cool.
can picture him.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can picture him. I love knowing that I can see Volk, and it's just so much better to me. It makes the reading experience so much better knowing that you can see the main character. So that was super dope when you sent us. And what Khalil's about to say.
Yeah. Speaking
is
of
perfect.
that, just like so with all hardbacks, immediately right before we start reading, we take off the front cover. But when
Yeah.
I did it with yours, I
Yep.
still seen the front cover, and
Yep.
I love that
Yep. Same.
because I'm whatever. Once I open the book, it's okay. But like, I don't like when I just see the black cover of a
Right.
book. It's like there's nothing. It makes me want to put this back on, but I don't want to do that while I'm reading. So when
Yeah.
this has everything, I was very pleasantly surprised. So
That's good. I'm so glad.
thank you for that. And then before I go into the next question, like I said, we were on live a little bit before you joined, and I had a couple people who were really just interested in the book that we were about to talk about. And we have a few Fourth Wing lovers in this chat, and I said that like it's your book. At least this first book was kind of similar as far as like bonding a creature, and but they kept asking about romance and if there was any coming in the next couple books, because there's not like we see like peaks a little bit of romance, but not a whole lot of romance in this first book. We can like kind of guess who like our main character will be with. We can guess who his sister will be with, but like, what does romance look like in your future books?
So there is a romance element in the First Chronicles. It is handled fun and adventure-y, though. It's not like the main plot point. It's obviously a subplot, and it goes over like many books before we finally get to the conclusion of the romance. Right? Every single book, Volk is about a year older, so he progressively ages up with it. So he's obviously the youngest in Knightmare Arcanist, and we're really awkward. And we have some like funny awkward scenes in book 2, but in book 3, that's when we start getting a little bit more like
He grows up.
Yeah,
Makes sense. Okay.
exactly. So I tried to handle it like that. I tried to remember what it felt like being a younger teen and trying to do like romance or being with people. I tried to stick to more reality, and so some people are like, that's a little cringy, because he said the wrong thing or he's acting weird around her or something like that. But I really tried to keep it a little bit real and not as adult. Like, again, as an adult, it's a little easier to be just say what you actually mean,
Right.
or not try to pretend, or the things like that. Again, it's handled very fun. It's not like a huge center point. It doesn't take over the entire plot, but main character totally finds love. A lot of the other characters totally find love, like that kind of thing. So, and as they get older, it becomes progressively more serious and I feel like satisfying at the end. I don't want to spoil it too much, but I do feel like by the end of it, you're like, oh, that was cool, but
I love a good satisfying ending.
Cool. Going through like the release dates of all these books in this series, it was super impressive. It was almost like 2 a year. What's your writing schedule like to be able to do that?
So I do work as a full-time author. That's all I do. That's how I make all my money. Which means that I write full-time at my house. So I write like 6 to 8 hours a day. I normally write about 5,000 words a day if I'm just like normally writing, which is about like 2.5 chapters, give or take. But even if I finish a book like really, really quick, I still have to do things like go through the editing, critique, review, like all this other kind of stuff. So, I usually write 2 to 3 books a year, or like they come out and they're published. And it really depends on the length. Some of the Frith Chronicles got really long, but I was just really, really enjoying writing them, and I just didn't want to stop writing them. So, like I said, some of them are a little chunk. They're chunky boys. But I feel like they're fun, and and people had a good time with them. But I do this as a full-time gig. So it's sometimes not fair to compare my writing output to someone who might have to do a full-time job and then come home and do writing.
Yeah, we saw that you actually taught at the college level.
Yeah.
And what made you take that step of because that's going out on a limb of just quitting your job and just putting yourself out there to become a full-time author. Was it success after your first book, or is it how was that?
Oh, it's actually might be weirder than that, because I was a professor, but then I became an attorney.
Oh.
And I used to work in a drug court, so I used to help guys who were in the rehabilitation process. They'd already been charged with drug crimes, and then I was there to advocate for them whenever things went wrong with whatever sort of program they were in. I hated being an attorney, because being an attorney totally sucks. Just FYI, it's not fun. People don't seek out attorneys when they're having a good day.
Right.
Fair enough. When they're having a bad day. So my husband was also an attorney, and he... I'm
so sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. My husband was also an attorney, and he was working in dependency, which is the court where kids are taken from their parents because the parents abuse them. So that's really depressing too. So we talked for a while, and he said that I should definitely pursue writing, because I'd already written a couple books by then, and he was like, "Oh, you're really, really good. You should keep doing this." And what happened is that I quit being an attorney, and then I just started writing full time without having a success. And the first couple books that I published were actually published with a publisher. Like, they weren't self-published or anything like that. I had an agent. I did all the classical things you're supposed to do for books. But it didn't really make me that much money. Like, I got an advance, but it wasn't like money you can live on. I think sometimes people might be a little confused about what actually happens in traditional publishing. It's not as lucrative as you might think it is. And the royalties are pretty low, unless for some reason your book takes off and is gangbusters. But a lot of the times this is like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Like they throw stuff out there, and they hope it works. Yeah. So then I started self-publishing my books, and I liked that a lot more, and I started making a lot more money doing it. So of the two routes, me personally, I have found that there's more money to be made just handling it yourself, because nobody takes from the pot in that moment. Because when you have an agent and you have a traditional publisher, everybody and their mother takes from the money before it ever gets to you.
Right.
So I started doing that, and apparently my books took off at that point, at least enough that I could make enough money to live off of. And awesome. Then my husband also stopped being an attorney, so he didn't have to do that anymore, and he also is now an author. So we both do writing. Yeah, that's all we do. So
That's dope. Just real quick, now that you bring that up, the publisher and that whole side of it, is there anything like, did they hold you back in any regard as far as like releasing your books when you wanted to, or anything like anything?
Well, one of the books I had with a publisher, I had a pretty lengthy argument with the editor. I had a character who was, it's like it was a Mulan situation. She was in the World War I army and she was pretending to be a man.
Okay.
And somebody found out. And this just happened to be basically her best friend in the squad.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a squad of magical sorcerers that were fighting in World War I. So she's a sorcerer. She has disguised herself as a man. So one of these guys finds out it's her best friend. And in the book, she just asks him not to tell anybody, and he agrees. And then they continue being a cool squad together. But it's a really good character subplot moment because it strengthens their bond, right? Now she has somebody to talk to about stuff like this. The editor wanted me to have the main character kill her best friend to keep her secret.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was like, I know. If I read that book, I would give that book a 1 star. You know what I'm saying? I would be immediately enraged that happened. And we had like actual arguments, like fights over it. He wanted me to change that really, really badly. And to this day, I'm not entirely sure why. I mean, he gave me reasons, but they all felt not good.
Not good enough.
So yeah, it was frustrating sometimes working with a publisher because they do have a lot of say in what goes on. They pick what your cover looks like. You have to argue with this editor. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just... Yeah. It was hard. I mean, I enjoyed the experience. Like, I'm glad that I know what happens when you work with a traditional publisher, but it wasn't the best experience I've ever had.
Yeah, I didn't think so, and that's why when you mentioned that, that question just popped in my brain because a lot like that in the music industry and stuff like that, and even with movies and stuff like that. So I figured it'd be the exact same in writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you actually, as you mentioned, how they have control over the covers. I read this book without reading the back cover, and after I finished the book and I was putting my review on Goodreads, I ended up reading just like it's the same thing that's on the back, but I didn't realize that like it tells us that Gregory is like the bad guy. And so as I'm reading the story, I was kind of shocked. Like you can not expect it, but like think that it might be him. But when it was like confirmed as him, I'm like, dang, that's got a plot twist. But then I'm like, nope, not a plot twist at all. If you read the back cover, you already know that's happening. What was like, I don't know, what made you want to do that?
Well, so writing the blurb is probably the hardest part of writing a book.
I can see that.
So I tell a lot of new authors, because sometimes I do like panels or presentations, like people who want to get into writing and being an author. The first most important thing to entice new readers is usually the cover. And the second most important thing to entice a new reader is the blurb. So these things have to be good.
Right.
I was a little afraid that when I originally wrote the blurb that my story might sound too generic because I had written it without any spoilers, but it's like a young boy really wants to be cool and have magic.
Yeah,
he goes on an adventure to get magic, and I'm like, okay.
It has to be interesting enough to make people want to read the book.
Right.
So that you say that makes sense. I guess for us it's a little different since we were always going to read this book since you gifted it to us. So I didn't need to read the back of the book. I like the idea of going in blind, but now that you said that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it was one of those, I just had to decide how do I make this just a little bit more intriguing so that somebody who reads it goes, I haven't seen that before. Like that kind of thing.
Right. That makes sense. Now I know that this series itself is completed, and you kind of talked about it very early into this interview, but what are you currently working on right now?
So I work on a lot of series at once, actually.
Okay. Crazy brain. I can't imagine that.
Well, it's a little easier for me sometimes to switch to writing a different book when I'm having like a hard time, writing, when you get writer's block, quote unquote. I don't really believe in writer's block, but there are moments where I really need a scene to be really cool. And sometimes when I write it, I'm like, this isn't cool enough. So in order to get like fresh eyes on it, I just go to writing something else, and then I'll just come back and read this later. So currently I'm writing the 4th book in my urban fantasy series, and I describe that as like the Dresden Files meets Groundhog Day. There's a main character who can rewind time for 24 hours.
I like that.
And he uses it to solve crimes and catch bad guys and fight monsters and stuff like that. So it's very fun. Like, it's a very fun style book. And so I'm on number 4 of that. There's a sequel series to the 5th Chronicles called Astro Academy. And it's a series that takes place like 70 years in the future. So like way after, all the adventures with Volk and all that other kind of stuff. And I have only one more book in that one. And as soon as that one is done, the sequel series will also be completed. So then I'll have 2 series in this world that's all done. I recently released Words of Power, which is like a progression fantasy. I don't know if you guys are like really into that genre, but progression fantasy is where characters constantly like power up or get cooler and more epic magic, like a main focus. Of
like
the
an
plot.
RPG, you get
Yeah. Exactly. So it's a progression fantasy, and I'm on book 3 of that one as well. And book 3 will be the conclusion. It's just going to be a trilogy. So, so I'm writing those 3, and I guess I have like a secret 4th project too that I haven't announced to anybody, but I'm finishing that one up. Yeah. But they're all fantasies right now. I'm not currently working on sci-fi, although technically in the background, I still write a bunch of like other books. And these are books in series that aren't like huge sellers, but I just want to finish anyway, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
But I have to be able to eat. So if the series doesn't sell very well, even if I love it, like it's deep in my heart, I'll finish it very, very slowly. It's just whenever I get time to write it.
Right. This is like a silly question, but how did you come up with character names? Like, are they ever based off real people, or are they just completely made up, or what?
I usually always make up the names. Sometimes I base characters on people I know.
Right.
But I never base their name on them.
Right.
In the terms of the 5th Chronicles, what I really wanted, since it's like a young adult fantasy, I wanted the names to feel very like fantastical, but are still very easy to say. Yeah. So Volk is not a particularly difficult name to say, but it's obviously not John or
right.
And like Zaxxas, his like kind of main rival guy. It's a fun name to say, but it obviously looks a little weird. His adopted sister Ilya, like that's a very odd name, but again, not very difficult to say. So that's how I basically approached every single one of those names. Is I want it to be a little bit unusual but easy to say. In my more adult works, I usually have a naming theme. Like in Starmark Rising, there are superhumans. So we're Homo sapiens, but they're Homo superior. And they were all made in labs. So all of their like last names and surnames actually have like a number in them because they're from a certain vat line, like that were created. So it all has a very technical naming scheme, if that makes any sense. If you hear one of the superhumans' names, you could deduce a lot about them.
Okay. And then just the last question I got, with your husband being an author too, like, do you guys bounce ideas off each other, or is it like kind of like, no, my idea, and like, you're like, how's that work? Like, you can't steal my idea.
I would say I'm pretty copacetic, and he's also very laid back. We do exchange a lot of ideas and help each other. I help him a lot with a lot of his works, and he helps me with a lot of his stuff.
That's cool.
He loves lit RPG. I'm not sure if you guys like are into that genre.
We love like games and stuff, and we actually just made a TikTok because Dungeon
we
Crawler.
didn't really know what it was.
We didn't really understand.
Okay.
Everybody kept saying that Dungeon Crawler Carl was lit RPG, and we was like, what is that? So people explained it to us, and I think we do.
Okay, yeah. So he writes primarily lit RPG. I technically have a lit RPG. It's called the Nexus Games, but I've only written one series that's lit RPG. Everything he writes is all lit RPG.
Right.
He really likes it. I joke that he's a math magician. He loves numbers. And a lot of lit RPGs have numbers in them, like so they have
Yep.
stats and representations of the character's strengths and magical abilities. So my husband does that kind of stuff like so well. What I usually help him with is visualization. So the first book he ever wrote, he wrote the entire thing. I'm not even joking you, without once describing a single character. Like what they physically look like.
How can we picture that person?
Just no physical descriptions whatsoever. So when I read his book, I had to go through and be like, you probably should describe this person at least once. That'd probably be good.
That's how I would write a book. Completely forget to describe a person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I help him a lot with that kind of stuff, and he helps me a lot too with like. He's really, really good at coming up with ideas when he already has a framework, if that makes any sense. He often tells me he's not first iteration creative, he's second iteration creative. So once he hears an idea, he gets like lots of branching ideas off that. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, John, I'm writing this scene and I want X to happen, but I'm not entirely sure, because I've written it like this and I can't seem to justify how I'm going to get to X. And he'll be like, here's the solution. And I'm like, oh my God, genius.
That's so
that
cool.
was perfect. So yeah, I think we're pretty good collaboratively.
Cool.
That's awesome. Now, we don't really have many questions left, but I just wanted to let you know we had like a couple comments saying they tagged you saying instant follow, lit RPG for the win. Someone asked if these books are at bookstores. I don't know if they are.
Yeah, you can get them off of like Walmart.com or Target or Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Technically, some libraries stock them, and if you ask your Barnes & Noble, they will stock them because they're printed with the same people that do like the Simon & Schuster distribution. But the ebooks are only on Amazon because they're on Kindle Unlimited.
Yep.
And Kindle Unlimited has a super strict, you have to only have the ebook here type of thing. So
fair enough. That's the best place to have it.
Yeah. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read them totally fine. And if you want to get the physical books, they're basically anywhere books are sold.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess, like I said, that's pretty much it. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd like to share? We have a good amount of people still in this live that are really interested in your book and other books that you've talked about. So is there anything that we didn't go over?
All my books are on Audible as well. So if people like audiobooks, I always try to make sure that they're everywhere so that however you like to enjoy books, you can enjoy it the way you want. Yeah. That's why I went out of my way to get the comic book, because I know a lot of people really, really like comic book adaptations of stuff. So I'm excited for that to release. Yeah, so I guess any way you like to consume the books, I've got them for you. I technically even have super special, let me see here, like super special Kickstarter editions. So
that's a big book you got there.
Oh yeah, it has a bestiary. This is probably one of my favorite things of all time. Is that it has like pictures of all the creatures.
I like
this
that.
is so terrible to see, but if you flip through, this is
we
the
like
Fritz
that
Chronicles deluxe version, so you can have pictures of like every single. Oh, this is.
I need that because it's it's easier to picture something if I have the picture of it. Is that his sister's?
Yeah. It's the little Rizzle. Yeah.
The
Rizzle's funny. I like the Rizzle.
Yeah. So I have versions, all sorts of versions of my books. Super deluxe editions, normal editions, hardcovers, paperbacks, Audible, ebook. You know what I'm saying? Like any way you consume books, I'm there. I've got you.
Look at that. That was literally my outro. I'm still going to say it, but Shami, sorry. Shami has physical copies for those who need the book in hand. She has audiobooks for those who like to listen, and she has them on Kindle as well. So however you like to read, you can get her books. And you can follow her on X at Game Over Station. She has a Facebook, S.A. Stovall. And you can also support her through her Patreon at Shami Stovall as well. Someone just asked what your books were about. I think they just joined. But fantasy. This is the first book in the Frith Chronicles, Knightmare, Arcanist. You can get that literally anywhere if you like, again, listen, read, audio or virtual. But it's a fantasy, high fantasy book. So far, this is the first book, and it was very good. I can't wait to read the next one and the rest of the series. I'll probably get a couple more of your other series as well, especially the one that follows this one.
Yeah.
I seen that. I've seen that on Amazon actually. Like, there's 5 books out right now for that one. So I'm excited, man. You got a lot of work. You're like pumping it out like Brandon Sanderson. I don't know.
I'm working. I got to do my work. Got to hustle, you know.
Yeah, we appreciate the grind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. It's been great. You guys are awesome.
We would love to, you know, we messaged you. We're going to get the full series of Knightmare for sure. And then after when we finish, we'd love to come back on here and just talk to you about, because I'm going to be a super nerd and I'm going to love characters you don't know, and I would just love to talk to you about everything about the whole series.
Oh, yeah, I love talking about it. I really love that series. You know, you want to talk about any of the details of the stuff, I'm here for it for days. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
perfect.
That's
awesome.
Thanks
again. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the books. Thanks for the bookmarks. Thanks for everything.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for taking the time and giving me a chance. I reached out to you randomly on TikTok, and you guys were like, "Sure," and I was like,
"I'm so happy you did."
Yes,
I'm so happy you did. And I mean, I think just from this, you got a lot of new followers and some people that will be checking out your books. They are excited. They can't wait to get into it. I can just see from the comments. So
awesome!
Thank you so much.
Well, that's exciting. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you.
Of course. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Let's see how we.
Yeah, how do you end this?
You know, let me see if I can get you out of here some way.
Oh, I got it.
Perfect. Cool. That was it, guys.